Hello, NuPIC. This is NuPIC Development Progress Review for March 6, 2015. I'm Matt Taylor. In the office, we've got Scott and Austin, and I don't think Chayton's there, is he? Right.
No, he's at Kosan.
And we also have on the phone David Ray, who's the tech lead for the HTML Java project with Java port of NuPIC HTML algorithms. And we're going to let him talk a bit about the progress on HTML Java after we talk about NuPIC. So without further ado, let me share a screen here, and I'm going to start talking about releases. So over the past couple weeks, since last time we did this, we have had two releases, 0.2.0, which was a minor release that introduced the first elements of a Windows build. So that was the first time we got a Windows build and app for NuPIC Core, which was, I think, a significant milestone there. And continuing work in 0.2.1, which for the most part was bug fixes for installation issues that I was working on. However, I did want to note something about how we're doing our rolling releases. We are not creating release branches at this point in time. Maybe something we consider in the future, but you might notice there's a bunch of other commits in here that have nothing to do with installation bugs, but since we didn't have a branch, they just get rolled into this 0.2.1 bug fix release. I'm going to continue doing that for now because it's the simplest thing to do until we decide we need to do something more complex. So 0.2.1 fixed a few OS X and Linux bugs for installation. But we're releasing on a pretty fast schedule at this point. It's easy to release, so we can just do it whenever we want. And that's the way I like it. So we're going to keep doing it. So let's move on to the roadmap. And you can see here the current focus is 0.3.0, which is a bit of a continuation of Windows work. And this involves build integration. So the idea here is once 0.3.0 is released, we'll have an app layer build not only in NuPIC Core, but one also for NuPIC. So we'll get a full spectrum of Windows support for NuPIC. The primary thing that needs to get done right now is sort of on my shoulders, and that is to publish the binaries that are being built in the NuPIC Core app layer build somewhere to S3 or whenever it builds. So those can be reused by the NuPIC build in app layer to build in Windows for NuPIC. So very similar to the way we currently run for OS X and Linux. We want to do the same thing for Windows. So we're making progress on it. There's some other things in here that's not shown that have been crossed off these lists, but these are the remaining tasks. Quite a bit of work still to be done, but we're moving in the right direction. And I've got the support of Richard and David Ragazzi helping me get this stuff set up because one of my problems is I don't have a Windows machine currently that I can use to prototype stuff yet. I'll probably try and get one, at least in EC2, to mess around with during this process. So I'm leaning on them pretty heavily for some of this stuff, but we are making progress. And there's a few standalone issues as well down here that haven't been fixed yet. But that's 0.3. When I released 0.2.1, I moved a couple of issues that I didn't have time to fix, and I still wanted to get a release out. I moved those into 0.3.1. If this gets fixed, this is a Fedora core issue. I need to get a VM stood up so that I can try and replicate that. But if I can fix that before we get 0.3.0 ready to release, I'll probably just move this to 0.2.2 instead. So, but that should be an easy change to do. Running down the roadmap, we've got upcoming work on cleaning up the build process for both NuPIC and NuPIC Core. Work on that has already been happening and is ongoing, but we still have these issues to find. Some of them don't have issues yet, so if you see things that like this one, maybe, I don't know who originally wrote that, but something like that probably needs to be classified better as creating a full ticket for it so that we can discuss it before any PRs are created. So 040 is all about cleaning up build logic, build work. 050 is cleaning up code. So a lot of cleanup stuff coming up, and this is stuff that people were trying to do anyway, so we wanted to kind of formalize it and say, well, here are the categories, and it helps us group together the work. After this 050 is a bunch of clean code issues that really aren't in the super issues, but everything else I've been dumping into features, and this is bigger chunks of work that needs to get finished. And one major one here that I do want to point out, this one, which is porting the remaining temporal memory code from Python into C++. Once we get this done, we could theoretically start creating version releases of NuPIC Core and treat it more as an independent project. So I believe that to the community this is probably an important thing. Right now I've got it assigned to Richard Crowder. He said he would start looking into it. But I would not call it a simple task, though he may be having troubles getting it done. If anybody out there wants to really learn these algorithms, how temporal memory works, it's very well written in Python. You can, and if you know C++, it would be a good place to jump in if you have any algorithms knowledge to help Richard port this into C, and then we can move on with our core extraction plan, which is nearing its final phase. Once we get that broken out, that's a huge milestone. There's also Scott's task of independent model serialization. This is upcoming work, but there is still some stuff that the community can do, which is I don't really know which one of these. One of these tickets is has some instructions on how to create cap and P protocol for existing classes. So we probably need a list of the. I think you do, Scott, have a list of the classes that we need to define cap and P configuration for, and he has examples of that on the wiki and in a ticket somewhere. I wish I could remember exactly where it was though. But I'll.
The link is right in the subtasks there. Also, it seems like this keeps getting pushed further and further down the line.
Oh, there it is.
Milestones. So.
There we go. Yeah, I don't really know where to put it. The thing about these milestones is putting them in this order doesn't necessarily encourage people to work on them in any certain order. But this would be a high priority item in my opinion, is getting this new cap and P stuff done. So maybe we need to think about a better way of highlighting that as important work, no matter where it is on the roadmap.
Yeah, a lot of
you and I have talked about that internally.
Code we can't rename files or classes and stuff because of the pickling limitations. So this is a blocker for that stuff, and I know a lot of people are antsy about that.
Yeah, definitely. Once we get this in place and working smoothly, we'll be able to do more refactoring. So this is an important issue. And here's the Wikidoc that Scott just told me was right in front of my face. And there's a bunch of optimization code. I'm not going to go over every one of these. Most of this optimization stuff is Mark's brainstorming and work, and as he comes up with things, we review them as we have time, or should I say Scott reviews them as he has time, because they're mostly C optimizations or build optimizations. Chayton is leading this monitor mix-in framework thing. I think he and Ryan's been working a little bit on this, but I don't know that this is a high priority item. And there is still a lot of stuff to do to improve the unit testing framework. currently the NuPIC core code coverage is not working at all. So it's shown 0% for quite a while, which is a bug. But I haven't heard from Utensil in quite a while, and he was sort of leading up this front. So it's still sitting here as things to do. And of course, we still have a bunch of kind of one-off ad hoc remaining issues or features. These are all pretty much features. And then we have a milestone for bugs. This was, I was hoping at some point we could all come together and decide, okay, let's stop working on new stuff and just focus on fixing things. So at some point in the future, once we get far enough along in this roadmap, I want to try and emphasize that and try and get everybody working on fixing bugs, having a concerted bug bash. So that's what this represents here. I haven't created any major super issues or anything. These are all just kind of one-off bugs that I've been dumping in here. Some of them more important than others, but they're not really. They have P1, P3, etc. on them, but I don't know how much I trust that because I put them there. and then finally, this is sort of the end of the road on the roadmap is 1.0, and all I've been doing here is throwing things that I know need to be done by 1.0, and I don't know exactly when they're going to get done, but I know they have to get done. So that's what's in here currently. So most of these are probably going to get moved up in the roadmap as we define more minor releases before 1.0, and I might end up moving the less important features in 0.6. There we go. Down into that because they're not critical. And as Scott said, some of these things like the serialization is much more important than some of the other things, and the porting the temporal memory to C, I believe that is also much more important than some of the other things. We might end up creating a milestone farther up on the roadmap to try and emphasize those. But I am open to community feedback on how that should work. This is an evolving process, as it should be in Agile development. So that is our current roadmap. Does anybody want to talk about this this plan right now? If not, I just want to do a quick review of open pull requests. Let's go. Some of these I'm not going to go over because they're pretty new. What I'm more concerned about, I think, is excuse me, the old ones. And some of these were just are cleanup PRs that we're still discussing, or that they don't quite build, or something's wrong with them. But I do want to talk about a couple of them. So here's one that I've got a little bit of a concern with. It's a ticket to remove all the vision-related code out of NuPIC core. And most of this, actually, this is NuPIC core. There was one from NuPIC as well, which I think already got merged. No, it didn't. Excuse me. But there was a bunch of NuPIC Vision code that got moved into another repo called NuPIC Vision, and that's in GitHub, NuPIC Community, NuPIC Vision. So one of these very recent commits, Mark's been working on this obviously, was moving a bunch of the code from NuPIC into this NuPIC Vision project with the intention of deleting it from NuPIC once we had that integration working properly. So I think this was a part of this, that initiative. And the status of this is that it's not building in Windows or Travis, as far as I know. So this is still a wide open initiative that is in Mark's court.
Why was?
Oh, here's the one to move code.
Why was the Vision stuff removed from NuPIC?
Well, we haven't discussed this. It hasn't currently been removed from NuPIC. These are pull requests that are advocating the removal, as you can see.
Said it was moved into a new repository.
I'm sorry, what?
I thought you said it was moved into a new repository. The issue was in the NuPIC core.
The NuPIC core, I think I misspoke. the NuPIC core PR is something. I don't know where that code's going to end up going, or if it's going to go, or if we're even going to approve this.
Well, so yeah, that gets me on.
That
gets to my primary concern is why would we want to do it?
Let's see. I guess it's just a cleanup task. Removing dead code, I think, is the initiative.
Are we sure?
So I'm not sure about any of this. So this is really all Mark. So he's already moved the NuPIC code, not moved, excuse me. He's taken a clone of the NuPIC code, vision-specific NuPIC code out of NuPIC and put it into this other repo. This other repo, NuPIC Vision. But we have not approved the removal of that code from NuPIC yet. And we haven't had a whole lot of, or maybe we haven't had any discussion about this a little bit. So we might just say we don't want to move this code, but it's something that we need to discuss with Mark. Like there's a ticket open. Oh, here it is. Here's the original ticket. Subutai says he's fine with it.
Well,
so that's probably why he started along that path.
We need to make sure that we can work in that repo. Copyright-wise, that we own it.
Oh, well, yeah, so that's a discussion that we need to have, because currently we don't own copyright on any of the code in this repo. It's copyright the authors of the code. Now, well, let me take that back. The code that Mark moved over, which is one of these two pull requests, looks like he did it in 2 batches. The stuff that came out of the NuPIC repo should still be copyright Numenta. But all of the rest of the code in NuPIC Vision is copyright whoever wrote the code. So from what I think we're probably getting off of scope. And Scott, I was going to talk to you on Monday about some of these copyright issues that we've been talking about internally. So we're not going to do anything with this PR to get it out of NuPIC until we have that discussion.
Well, I think that we should have a broader discussion as to why we should do it in the first place.
Yeah. Okay.
I still
so I mean,
accomplished by doing that.
The initiative is cleaning up code that's not run. That's the only initiative as far as I can tell.
Then why move it to a new repository? I don't understand. If we're going to keep it around, why does it need to be in a different repository?
Because I don't know if this is the right answer to the question, but because a NuPIC Vision repo does exist, it could be used in that NuPIC repo. What I'm not certain about is if the code in NuPIC Vision here was actually using the code that Mark moved into NuPIC. If that were the case, it makes more sense to move it into here because there's, even if it's just a sample application, using that code. I've been trying to convince Mark to join these meetings, but he hasn't yet. I don't know if he's watching or not, but Mark, we need a bit more conversation about this topic before we can approve the full removal of all this code from NuPIC and NuPIC core. I think that's a fair statement. So, what are some of these other things I want to research? NuPIC, speed metrics. Some of these things are rather old, and they've just been sitting around because the original authors of the pull requests have moved along, or the builds aren't working, or so we don't have much control over the pull requests that are not passing builds. This may be one exception. This sparse map potential thing. It's marked as blocked. Yeah, so but he's still working on it. He's got apparently a change in NuPIC that goes along with it, so he still has to work on it. So all these other PRs up around the top are stale but under construction, I would say, by the pull request authors. Okay. So that's what I wanted to go over. I think we've hit everything I wanted to go over. Before we move on to David Ray and have him talk a little about HTML Java, let's just have a quick session of who wants to talk about anything at all. If anyone has any comments.
Can I mention that sparse map potential last bug?
Yes, right. Let me get it back up.
That was something that I had proposed before because I noticed that the temporal memory does all of its operations on sparse.
Here's the original.
Yeah, on sparse data, and for the spatial pooler, for some reason, breaks things out. It inflates the SDR into a dense representation. So I'm just wondering if if the spatial pooler can also work with sparse data purely in all of its algorithms, except maybe some of the vector multiplication stuff. But I think that, and I pointed out some opportunity for doing that within this PR or within this issue here, where I as I was porting this stuff over to Java. I noticed that everything could be kept in this sparse format, and it would speed things up because there are a few different places where the SDR is inflated and then compressed again in order to pass it along to other methods. So I think this bears some looking at.
Okay. Well, I think Mark's sort of on it, but he doesn't have a PR that's in a state that's mature enough for a review. I think that's where we're at this point.
Okay.
So he commented on that only 3 days ago after I saw a green build. So he is working on it. This is 4 days old. He was pushing commits.
Cool. Very cool.
Anything else, guys? Okay, David, can you talk a bit about what's going on with HTML Java? We don't have video for you, but I'm fine showing my mug on the screen while you're talking. I made my bed for this,
I appreciate that. Okay, not much. HTML Java is just moving along. Thank you.
Very nice.
I'd like to thank, as I was doing this, I got a lot of support from Numenta, Scott Chaitin, and Matt in particular, and Sukai. And it looks like a huge, daunting thing, but I just did it piece by piece, and I had a lot of their help. And there were contributors who came in when we started adding in encoders, because we could kind of break up the work a little bit, and it was in manageable pieces, and people kind of felt like they could dive in. And so those guys I really want to thank, and I'd like to continue their involvement. Yeah, as you can see, there are like 6 or 7 people who have helped the project along and contributed encoders and supported me in doing things also, exploring different topics. And so I'm going to talk a little bit more about that at the end. So recently we have completed the anomaly package and a little benchmarking. We've integrated a benchmark tool so that later on we can create benchmarks and we can kind of keep a close eye on the build of htm.java to make sure that we don't introduce anything that that increases latency by too much. At least we have a standard or some means of comparing the performance. So that's going to be kind of important going along. The anomaly package was just something I did because My test for getting the network API, which is what I'm currently working on, for getting that going was to have the network API demo that's currently present in the Python repo working as the, working in the same manner. So I wanted to get that going, and it touches on the whole anomaly package, so it kind of exploded in a huge segue. I just kind of just had to finish that in order to reference it from the network demo. So um, yeah, so that's a little blurb talking about the completion of it and how it's used. I hope you guys find that useful. Again, if anybody has any suggestions or any place where they feel they can improve some of the documentation or some of the code even, please feel free to mention it. I am especially now going to be around a lot in the Gitter channel, and I haven't too much been looking at the other talk format, but I'm usually around in the Gitter channel, and I'm always looking at the emails. So if you guys want to chime in and take part in it and help evolve HTM.java so that we can have a viable language alternative implementation of NuPIC, that'd be you guys are welcome. So currently, well, one of the things we added recently, I've been getting some questions about how do I use HTM.java and why aren't there demos or some kind of explanation for how it's used, and it's fresh off the presses. So if anybody wants to come in and create, we can use some demos. We definitely can always use that, and if anybody wants to come in and work on some of that, I'm totally available almost 24 hours because I don't sleep much, so for help. So if you guys want to come in and do that, that's fine. We added this thing called QuickTest.java just recently, and as much of an off-the-cuff piece of coding as it is, it's about the most comprehensive example of how to actually piece together the different algorithmic components. So if you take a look at that, most of the things are commented out because I work in Eclipse and I hate the little yellow warnings. I like everything to be clean. And so, since nothing is referencing the file, it all gets a status of not used, so everything is yellow. And so I commented a lot of the stuff out, but all you have to do is uncomment everything and then just run it, and it should run for you. And it explains how to hook up the encoders and how to hook the encoders up and piece the input into the spatial pooler and the temporal memory, and it's very.
Is this the right place, David? Am I looking at the right file here?
Sure.
Quick.
I mean, that whole entire, and that's the quick test.
Oh, that's the quick test.
Right, that's the quick test, but it's not the quick test. So that should be in examples, Qt. There you go.
There we go.
So this is the most straightforward demonstration of how to put everything together and how to put it to immediate use. So I think this will be very useful. Everybody I've pointed to this has been able to use it. So
Good.
I've been working with somebody named Peter Dove. He kind of was the progenitor of this. Because he asked me, well, how do I use it? And I didn't have an example at that time, so he wrote something up, and then I kind of adapted it into this. So he's working on something called HTM Uni, which is a UI for using HTM.java. So we really look forward to him finishing that. I was just in the Gitter channel talking with somebody who was asking for examples, and I pointed him to it. So thanks to him, we kind of have this, at least this one example, until I finish the network API, which is what I'm going to talk about next. The network API is basically the same concept as what the Python network API is. You're going to have regions, you're going to piece things together. It's going to be a high-level access for programmers to the API, so they can use it in a formal means and monitor its performance and do some things you really want to do in a production environment with code. So I'm kind of working on that right now, and I don't know how long you guys want me to talk for, but that's what's coming up next. I would look for that in the next week or two, and then we'll have a formal way for HTM.java to be used. I'm going to talk briefly now about the work that people can do to contribute to HTM Java. Right now, the most discrete component that can easily be added that that I won't get in the way of its development, that kind of stands off on its own, is a K and N classifier. If somebody wants to, it's kind of a heady piece of code, so if somebody wants to dive in, I've already asked some of the community members, and I haven't gotten any bites yet. So somebody wants to work on that. And then test coverage has been at 69% for a while now. And so I was thinking one of the things people could do would be to open up some of the existing tests and create more tests for some of the methods that already exist, because it would be nice to kind of boost that up and get that into the 90s. So that's something that people could do, really easily, to get kind of their name in lights, in bright lights, and kind of contribute to it, and just kind of create more tests, and even just enhance the tests that currently exist. Other than that, I was just asked recently about the sine wave example. If someone wants to duplicate the demo, yeah.
That's a bad example.
Okay. Okay.
I guess I just want to make that just because it exists in NuPIC, and it's just we're not very good at sine waves. I mean, HTML's not that great at sine waves, so
Okay.
it's not going to be. Some people want it to be perfect, and it's not going to be perfect.
So yeah, that thing I was saying about sine waves, just kind of discount that.
Well, no, I mean, you could do it. There's value in it because people understand sine waves and they know exactly what you predicted and what's going in. So it's just everybody has feedback about that and said, well, it's not working very well. And then I always have to point that back to this post by Jeff on the mailing list that explains why it doesn't work very well in sine waves. But just be ready for that.
Okay, all right. Other than that, there's the K&N classifier. There's the enhancing of tests or creating of new tests, which I think is a very easy entry point for somebody who wants to get involved really quickly. Would be the tests.
For the tests, is there an easy way to run a test report, a coverage report, and get HTML so that people can see what's not covered?
They can run Gradle check from the command line once they download the repo, and it will generate. It does the Corbatura reporting, I think it is, and it'll generate the report HTML in the directories. It'll actually tell you, the build will actually output the directory you can find the reports in. So, run Gradle minus. Can you stop that real quick?
Yeah.
Run Gradle space minus P, capital P. Skip bench, contiguous with the P. You want to have it right after the P, no space. Skip bench space check. Enter. Okay, so at the end of this, which will only take about 57 seconds.
You can keep talking.
Okay. It should tell you what the report directory is. I'm kind of waiting to see if I'm a liar or not. Um, 17. It did.
Usually some goes into doc, right?
Yeah.
That's all right. I don't want to get sidetracked. We're already sort of over our time. So, but it would be good if you post a message to hackers or something, or on the wiki to show people how to generate the test reports.
Okay. No, but this actually generated it. You just have to find it now. If you do a find space,
Yeah, right.
yeah, find space dot star HTML, there should only be like a couple directories where that
Your doc
there.
or build reports test. There it is.
And
Okay.
are you on
So
text?
I gotta share it if it's too long.
There you go. That's what I'm used to
There it
looking
is.
at there. So
Right. So now we can look at the classes that, like, the tests. Oh, that's weird.
and then there's a test
There we go.
coverage link too. Hold on a second. Let me just. Where's that?
Oh, this just is a report of
Right.
this is something different.
Um,
We'll work this out, and we'll have to report on the mailing list because I don't want to take up too much time right now on this meeting, which isn't really about this. So
okay. All right. Well, that's about it. I'd just like to thank everybody who helped and thank everybody who is thinking of helping and encourage them to move on from thinking about it to actually helping. But
I'm not going to thank anyone for thinking of helping. If you do help, I'll thank you. So. Okay, guys, I really appreciate your time. Thanks, David, for joining us. Thanks to the guys in the office. Everybody have a wonderful weekend, and we'll chat on Gitter or the mailing list. So, adios.
Cool. Thanks, Matt. See you, David.
Bye.